Welcome on to the Tortillas and Takes podcast. You are on once again with your boy, I'll be sure. And the game of the week, a lot of times I joke about game of the week and Texas Tech, and I've even made jokes that Texas Tech Kansas is the game of the week. Obviously, that's not the case most years. But this actually may legitimately be the game of the week. It definitely is a Big 12 championship elimination game. And I'm talking about the game between Colorado and Texas Tech. Now, coming into the season, right when the schedule first broke and tickets were going out, Colorado immediately was the hottest ticket for the season. It was the most expensive game. It was the only game, it was the only game right when tickets dropped that to get in was over $100. And if you're like me that likes to wait until the closer gets to the game with the assumption that typically prices drop, not for this game. This game now to get in, I believe, is $250. $250 just to get into the game itself. So unless you got season tickets to this game or you just got money like that to spend, it's going to be a tough way for you to get in there. And that's just how important. The game has just gotten more and more important. I think a lot of people expected by this time Colorado would fall off. I think a lot of people expected by this time Texas Tech would fall off. Neither team has fallen all the way off. Iowa State redeemed us. So we back, baby. We back. And so to talk about this game a little bit more is the people's champ, Jeremy Gillen. What's up, Jeremy?
What's up, Albie? Even though the game is expensive to get into, something that is not expensive to get into is that wonderful pregame big noon kickoff celebration down there by the stadium. Joe and I are going to be there. All the coolest people are going to be there. We're going to stand behind the likes of Urban Meyer, Mark Ingram, the rest of them. And we're going to be like, hey, Texas Tech is good at this game, more or less. Because we got to hype up our team when they come out to Lubbock. And some of them for the first time in Lubbock, and so it's really exciting. It ain't college game day, but it's its own thing. And so I'm really excited about this Saturday and what the attention is coming to Lubbock. Whether it's because of Colorado or not, I could give a rip. But, a lot more eyes going to be on Lubbock, Texas this weekend.
You bring up a really good point with Big Noon Kickoff coming there because I feel like they have, like Brady Quinn and Matt Leinart especially, have done they really have extended themselves to be like, yeah, man, we're excited to be in Lubbock. Let's College Game Day was in Lubbock back in 2008, and the basketball version came to Lubbock. I think it was 2016, 17, something in that area in the late 2010s. But for the most part, especially the football version, they've been doing this for decades and decades. They kind of show up and it's like, okay, cool. Another campus, another year, right? Pat McAfee's kind of brought another level to it. And I think because he's new to it, it's brought new excitement. But for the rest of them, for the most part, it's like, okay, going through this. Big Noon Kickoff is what I think in its third year, right? It hasn't been going on for a long time. And they know they're the second fiddle. Like we were making jokes about last week because they were both at in State College, PA for the Ohio State Penn State game. And Big Noon Kickoff was kind of given the back parking lot, while College Game Day got the prime field, right? They know that they're second place of two, right? But because of that, it's requires them to extend themselves more. So I actually do think it's kind of cool that they're going to ingratiate themselves into Texas Tech culture and Lubbock culture. And then also, I think for y'all being there, the crowd's not going to be as packed as it was for College Game Day, so it's going to be a little bit more intimate, which I think is going to be cool. And so the other half of the guys that are going down representing TNT at Big Noon Kickoff, we got Red Raider expert himself, Joe Lopez. What's going on, Joe?
Albert. You take a look at this game, just like you said early on in the season, this was the game everybody circled. Everybody circled it. Nobody cared what the records were going to be. Everybody circled this game. This was a game to be at. Deion Sanders coming to Lubbock, Texas, and bringing, his Colorado Buffaloes down here to show, us, his sons. Travis Hunter, arguably one of the best athletes in the country right now. I mean, it's kind of hard to say he's not. So it's just, I sit back and I've been thinking about this game ever since after the Iowa State win on Saturday. Where does this game rank? Since the last time we had College Game Day here, where would you rank this game going in? What's the height meter? Where would you leave it at? Is this going to be the biggest one? Is this going to be somewhere like the Baker Mayfield, Patrick Mahomes showdown? Is it like kind of level game, or is it going to be something bigger than that? I'm just really interested to see what this crowd is going to bring to the table.
Yeah, that's actually a really good question as far as, and we're talking about excitement into the game, right? Like for example, if we think of hindsight, right? That TCU Texas Tech game back in, what was that? That was 2017, 16. After the fact, that was an incredible game. But the hype leading into, you're right. I mean, since 08, it hasn't been too much. I mean, I think a couple that come to mind, 09 against Oklahoma was a lot of hype coming into that game, getting revenge off of what they did to us in 08. That game was also wildly fun in general. The hype going into the 09 Texas game, right? The rematch from the year before also was wildly hyped up. You brought up Mahomes versus Mayfield. I know that was really Mayfield's first game back in Lubbock, which was huge. I think the second most vitriol game we've had, only behind Beard's return to Lubbock in basketball. But to that point, you bring up a really great point, Joe, is that as far as hype goes and having to spend $250 just to get into the stadium, we haven't had a game like this in a while. And a game with implications, right? Like, I think that's the biggest part of it, is that we haven't had a game where there's like things are at stake. A win here, and we are legit contenders for the Big 12 title. I think Jeremy made a comment about it early in the recap, and we kind of laughed and scoffed at it. Win this game, then it's less of a joke and laugh and more of we're actually really in the fight, right? I mean, this is and that's why I say it's a Big 12 championship elimination game, because for Colorado, it's the same thing. And for both Colorado and Texas Tech, I looked at Colorado's remaining schedules. This is the toughest game they have for the rest of the year.
Yep.
And for Texas schedule, our last two games are against Oklahoma State, which is the worst team in the conference right now, and then West Virginia, who they're not bad, but that's a game we should be, I believe we're currently favored in, or we should be by the time we play them. So this is, I think, to your point, Joe, a game with real stakes, which we haven't had a game where both teams have real stakes in a while. Even last week against Iowa State, we were just going in there happy-go-lucky, right? Iowa State was the team trying to be a college football playoff team, and it wasn't until we got that W where it was like, oh, okay, well, no, stakes are back. We're back in it. So, yeah.
Yeah. Also, another point, even if you don't have $250 to get into the game, right? Go to Big Noon Kickoff, then mosey on down to Raider Alley and go watch the Ying Yang Twins. I mean, come on, that's all free. I mean, just show up, be there, be loud, and go from the windows to the wall, or whatever you like to do, you know?
So kids, anyone born after the year 1998, Ying Yang Twins were a very popular hip hop group in the 2000s. You know, they made us go from the windows to the walls to the sweat drop down other places. So, you know, nice little history lesson. It's going to be a good time. I do find it hilarious that Texas Tech doesn't know any recent hip hop or pop artists. So they're like, hey, bring it back to the 2000s. All right. We know them. we know Mike Jones. We know Slim Thug. We know Ying Yang Twins.
Yeah.
Do you think they call Kitley and ask him for recommendations?
Maybe.
Yeah, because I feel like
one of them is going to go up to Kitley and go, "Hey, shorty, let me whisper in your ear."
Like, Joey, Coach McGuire, what are you doing?
Let's go.
And then it's gonna be like, no, I'm trying to whisper you correct plays. Stop on screens.
Yeah, that's it. That's
right.
where we're at.
That's right. So, so to get a little bit more serious, Jeremy, break us in. What's your initial look into this Colorado Buffaloes team? And you can't use the words Travis Hunter.
Cool, because I don't care. This Colorado team has been
spicy.
This Colorado team has been impressive this season, because I think something that Colorado has done is done a really good job at rallying everyone up to hate them. And a lot of that's come from the hubris. It's come, of course, from Coach Prime's kind of personality. And we talked about personalities last episode when we were talking about Joey McGuire. Very much, you know, his personality is very rah-rah for the guys. But Coach Prime is very much rah-rah for myself, and you can get on if you want to. And that's been very much Colorado's attitude and their fandom. And we were all just kind of hoping that they would just crash and burn and eat a little bit of humble pie, but they haven't, right? They had their loss against Nebraska early on. Since then, went on a 3-game win streak against Colorado State, which is like, okay, whatever. But beat Baylor in overtime, which is looking more impressive with Baylor's play. Beat UCF, lost against Kansas State, and then beat back-to-back Arizona, Cincinnati. Arizona, obviously not that great. Cincinnati is a good team. So Colorado has been managing to get it done against good, decent and good teams in our conference. Now, the thing about it is that you want to look at Shedeur Sanders as a quarterback and say, this guy's got some wow factor, but can he be consistent? Can he, with his physical build, like how long can he sustain this in a very hit heavy conference? But the reality is that the Shedeur Sanders that we've seen this season has been very impressive, right? That he's been making the big plays. He's been making a lot of, hold on, let me drop the dog. He's been making a lot of extra effort where Colorado has never had that before. And having the receivers that he's had, it's not out of the realm of possibility to say, hey, Shedeur may break off 400 yards in a game, right? Because, he had 400 something against, North Dakota State, right? But he's had a very consistent, above 250 yards a game. That's who he is. And it's been a lot of big plays. It's not very functional and stuff, but he's always looking for the wow factor. And I think Colorado's made a very successful tenure off of the wow factor this season. It's kind of reminding me of TCU's wonder season in their playoff run, right? That they're winning games that you look at it and you're like, how did you win this game? But it comes down to a lot of intangibles, like just a desire to win and going for, Max Duggan. We talk about Max Duggan having very much this dog mentality, right? Shedeur Sanders has something completely different, this superstar mentality, which it's two sides of the same coin. There's a lot of effort and a lot of efficiency that comes from that and results. And so I think Shedeur Sanders carries himself a lot differently. And Colorado has just made a bank off of, the big play and being a team that everyone wants to lose and they just want to fight that narrative.
So Shedeur Sanders is 8th in the country in passing yards, tied for 2nd in the country in touchdowns, top 10 in the country in passer rating among starting quarterbacks. So he's killing it. I think he's a guy that you look at and you say, okay, well, he's going to be a first-round draft pick. Might even be in contention to be the number 1 draft pick. And he's doing a really good job. I think it's really interesting that Jeremy compared him to Max Duggan and what he was able to do for the TCU team a few years ago, and that being what Shedeur Sanders has been able to do. I will say one thing that's impressed me about not just Shedeur Sanders, but also Deion Sanders and his coaching, right? It was a lot of flash in the pan early on. They got all this fanfare early on last year. The fanfare came back with the North Dakota State game. But the interesting thing I think about this year is, and it is a sign of good coaching, this Colorado team has gotten better as the year has gone on. This is not the same Colorado team that played North Dakota State or played Nebraska. If they played Nebraska again today, I'm actually very confident they beat them. If they played Utah again today, I think there's no doubt they beat them, but that's a totally different Utah team now. But the team has gotten better as the season gone on, and that's a sign of really positive coaching. So they've, like Jeremy was saying, they've really adopted the mentality of their coach, that they are all stars, that you can go out and whoop up on teams. And I think one way I would say they're different than TCU is they're not just squeaking out wins. They're beating teams and you're like, oh, definitely thought they were going to lose that one. But they didn't just win, they blew them out. This team might be cold. So, Joe, what do you think? What do you think about Colorado?
I think they've, embodied this whole us versus everybody. Everybody wants to knock them off because of everything that football team brings. Deion Sanders and how he puts all his players out there and, just is branding every single athlete that's out there. That just kind of seems like there's a little bit of cockiness to the entire team and the roster. Hey, we're here, we're coming. If you look at all the phrases that Coach Prime has said over the course of the last 2 years, it's, I'm bringing my luggage and it's Gucci or whatever that crap he said whenever he was telling the Colorado team last year that whenever he took the job, hey, if this isn't the place for you, then, bye. I got better coming this way. So I think they've embodied everything that he's done, to like Jeremy's point himself and what you just said. I mean, the coaching staff, this whole just numbers in transfers, right? We weren't sure exactly how this experiment would work. Just 76 in, 56 out, 70 something in, another 50 out. Like how are these players going to translate into the transfer? I mean, he's really not hitting the high school level harder than, you know, anybody out there in the country. He's just doing everything on the transfer side, and it's actually proven to actually be working this year around. Shedeur Sanders, I mean, if you go back and look at tape on how he's played last year as opposed to this year, yes, there's some times where he's trying to extend a play and, you know, make the throw. And that's why he took so many sacks. And that's kind of still why he's taken a little bit more sack or less sacks this year as compared to last year's, because he's starting to make some of the easier passes across the middle. He's not taking all these super deep shots. Yeah, a lot of these are huge chunk plays, but I mean, you have these wide receivers that, you know, if you don't get them down in the first tackle, they're going to make you pay. I mean, every single one of them has speed, and that's besides Travis Hunter, you know, Jimmy Horn, Wester, the Miller kids, you know, all those guys are really good wide receivers. So I think everything that they've done this year on the offensive side is us versus everybody, and they've just taken their act wherever they needed to go. So I do think it's similar to the TCU deal. Like, oh, how are you winning this game? Like like especially the UCF game, whenever they went to Orlando, that was like the big game where everybody's all like, oh, Central Florida has the best rushing attack in the nation right now. And Colorado, you know, hasn't had really great defensive fronts or defensive front sevens. We're like, oh, this is going to be a blowout, you know, and it turned out, you know, a 20+ point beatdown by Colorado. So, I mean, it's how they've adapted to what the game has done over the course of the last few weeks is, you know, I can't say that hasn't been remarkable. I mean, but it's been pretty solid. So, I mean, they're a good football team. They're finding ways to get it done, and they have talent on a bunch of different levels that could hurt you in many different ways.
Yeah, quick correction. I misspoke earlier saying that they lost to Utah. They actually lost to K-State. And that was that was a good game. But to your point with the UCF one, that was after they had that miraculous win against Baylor. And so even after that game, you're like, I don't think this team's any good. Since then, they spanked UCF in Orlando, like you said. Close win against a good Kansas State team, spanked Arizona on the road, and then beat a decent Cincinnati team. Like they are stacking success and building quality wins there. And they look like a good team. Like I can't even front. I can't knock it. Like they look like a legit good team. So let me ask you this, Jeremy, quarterback whisperer. All right. Shedeur Sanders, is he the best quarterback in the conference?
Best how?
Ooh, you on rare form today. Best how? Are you asking a real question? I thought you were saying like, no, is he the best? All right, so you asked a real question. No, so I'll say this. I'm asking this. If you could pick any quarterback in the Big 12, is it Shedeur Sanders?
Any quarterback in the Big 12 just to like lead my team?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't think that Shedeur Sanders is very much like a. Am I back? Okay. Hello. Yeah. That was weird. That hasn't happened often. Okay. As like a true kind of glue quarterback, I wouldn't say that Shedeur Sanders is like the quarterback that I'd go to kind of rally my team together. I feel like he's very much, I don't know. The problem is that his numbers are outrageous right now, right? 2,500, nearly 2,600 yards in the season. He's got 21 touchdowns, six interceptions. Does not like he's got his completions percentage is insane at 73%. Like he is by the numbers is one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12, no doubt, right? But if you go by the numbers, Josh Hoover is beating him. So it's like, but is Josh Hoover a better quarterback? I don't know, right? Because TCU's record sure wouldn't reflect that. So there's just a lot of things that kind of you can't really measure. At the same time, it's like, I want to say Brandon Sorsby is one of the better quarterbacks in the Big 12, but by the numbers, Alan Bowman's a better quarterback. And yet Oklahoma State is a garbage team. So that's really hard to measure. I think that if you're like in a game time situation and you need to win the football game, Shedeur Sanders is one of the better quarterbacks in the Big 12 to give you a chance. Because again, that guy's a baller and he believes, hubris or not, Shedeur Sanders believes that he's going to win the football game and has made it happen time and time again. Right. He has had superstar potential. It's created long, ridiculous passes to good receivers. Right. But has done a lot of ridiculous stuff that has given Colorado this euphoria that just we're unstoppable. Like Kansas State, it was a fluke. Play them again, we win. Right? There's no loser mentality. It's we'd be undefeated if X, Y, and Z. Whereas in the reverse, it's Texas Tech fans. We can't even go into a game this week. A lot of Texas Tech fans we're probably going to lose. But Colorado fans, they don't know way to answer the question. Get off my back.
Albert just
doesn't want my in-depth analysis.
Well, but you just made the argument for he is the best quarterback.
Yeah.
Well,
that's right.
In certain scenarios.
Jeremy,
the best quarterback in the Big 12 would be Josh Hoover.
This ain't
best quarterback in the
tortillas
Big
and
12 would be Josh Hoover
scenarios.
by the numbers.
Tortillas and scenarios. If you put Brendan Sorsby with that wide receiver room, and take Travis or Shedeur Sanders and put him with Cincinnati's wide receiver room, does he have the same success?
That's a really interesting. I don't know. I don't think Brendan Sorsby has ever had that talented of a wide receiver room. I think he's, so maybe Shedeur Sanders is kind of that.
Or would you label Shedeur Sanders as a system quarterback?
System quarterback.
Well, because let's talk about Big 12 quarterbacking in other conferences, because I think the best example of that right now is Will Howard, who's playing at Ohio State.
Yeah, facts. Yeah.
But when you put the ball in Will Howard's hand to make a play himself, he shit the brick. He lost the game against Oregon.
See,
right.
That's
so
it's that's where I would flip it around, because I feel like with Shedeur Sanders, he is the guy to win you the game, right? So that's where I do look at him and say, if I 2 minutes to go, down by 4, need a touchdown, there's not a single guy in the Big 12 that I'd want other than Shedeur Sanders to be that quarterback. All right. That's what to me separates him and says that this is going to be the toughest game we're going to have against a quarterback, because he can do there's no. I looked at Shedeur Sanders. There's nothing he can't do, right? And so when I'm looking at it defensively, I'm well, we just have to hope or not hope, but play and lead him into mistakes, lead him into taking sacks. Because even though he's better at negative plays this year than he was last year, he's still top 5 in the country in sacks given up. This O-line still stinks, right? Don't get it twisted. This O-line is still bad. He's still running around. You can still lead him into mistakes, but he's also only thrown 6 interceptions this year. So he doesn't make that bad mistakes anymore. And he can run. He can throw. He has great arm strength, fairly accurate. And I think the thing with Shedeur that's scariest is that it's those off-script plays where he's at. It's how he beat Baylor. Is those off-script plays that it's not supposed to be anything. It's
it's very Johnny Manziel.
Yeah, he got some Manziel in him. I'm not going to say he got Mahomes in him, because I think that's being overused, but definitely has some Manziel in him. So I think that is, to that point, what sets him apart. I will say, Joe, we talked about Shedeur. There is another guy who because this guy is on his team is the only reason why Shedeur is not getting Heisman consideration, because all the Heisman consideration is going to his teammate and best friend, Travis Hunter, who is the Shohei Ohtani of college football, right? Arguably one of the top 5 corners in the country, and arguably one of the top 5 wide receivers in the country. He is absolutely killing it on both sides of the ball. What do you make of Travis Hunter and ways that he can impact the game?
I mean, just sheer athleticism. I mean, it seems like this dude's tank is never empty. I mean, in there for 80 plus, 90 plus games, or it's snaps per game, and it's just like, and he's still, you know, burning guys on a go route, or, you know, in open space, making somebody miss and turning a little 10-yard gain into a 45-yard plus game for a touchdown, and he still is outrunning people, and he hasn't ever left the field. You know, his tank is just, like I said, always full. Just a generational talent, like you said, Shohei Ohtani. If you start thinking about of all the dual sport athletes, you know, a Bo Jackson, a Deion Sanders, I mean, Travis Hunter's name is going to easily be in that list as well, because I mean, he just has all those intangibles, and he's a humble kid. I mean, if you hear him talk and everything that he does, I mean, he's fairly grounded. He doesn't go out and post party pictures or all of this other stuff. I think he's all about that business and that business mentality. And I also think that's a part of the prime effect. I think that's where Deion Sanders has kind of groomed him into, you know, hey, this is, you know, a business, and this is the way you need to start branding yourself. And he's done a really great job at doing that, you know, over the course of from being the number one overall rated high school recruit and going to Jackson State to play football for Deion Sanders. It's just an incredible athlete. I mean, anything you ask this kid to do, he's going to go do it. He'll go and stick his nose in a running back's face, DJ Giddens, and he's, you know, that was arguably one of the better running backs up until this point, you know, with Taj Brooks and Ollie Gordon, RJ Harvey, and he'll stick his nose in there and make those tackles. And those are the kinds of plays that make, you know, just your regular player, you know, just a different kind of animal. But there's nothing that kid can't do. I mean, I'm sure on the football field for sure.
Yeah, I mean, talk about the Baylor game where that Baylor game was one of the most impressive defensive plays I've ever seen, right? Where with the game on the line, you are told to go make a play and you cause a fumble at the 1 yard line the very next, like what is that, right? Like that's insane, right? And so now it's funny you said he's a humble kid. He is a very humble kid until you get him talking about the Heisman. They ain't got no problem telling you why he's
right.
everybody in their mama. But
that's also the prime effect, though, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and listen, I'm a big proponent in that if you can back it up, you can say anything you want. And he has backed it up and then some. So definitely going to be tough, I think, for the Texas Tech defense to be able to hold him offensively. Guys, we also talked about the other offensive firepower on this team. Joe, you mentioned the Miller brothers. Also, Jimmy Horn, Joe Horn's son, who is, you know, because of Travis Hunter and because of Shadir Sanders, and because of Wester, who's had a really good year this season with Jonte Wester, we forget about Jimmy Horn. I'll watch a Colorado game, and all of a sudden, Jimmy Horn with a 40-yard catch. Well, that's right. He's still incredible, right? Yeah. And so Joe, talk to us about some of the, you know, little details as far as what should Texas Tech's defense really look out for when it comes to the skill positions.
I mean, they're loaded. I mean, especially whenever this offense, you know, throws a 10 and 11 personnel out a majority of the game, you're going to have Hunter, Wester, Horn, and Shepard all on the field at the same time. And it's almost like pick your poison. Every single one of those guys has over 25 receptions on the year. All of those guys are averaging over 13 yards a reception. And a majority of those guys have multiple touchdowns, with the exception of Jimmy Horn, which is kind of odd to me. But Travis Hunter has the 8, Wester has 7, Shepard has 3, and then Jimmy Horn has that single one. But I mean, don't kind of get that twisted. He's arguably the fastest guy on that Colorado Buffalo team. He's a kickoff return guy. I believe he may be a punt return guy as well, if I'm not mistaken. But, you know, just he creates excitement when the ball's in his hands. So, I mean, anytime you have these set of 4 wide receivers on the field at any given time, you're going to need to get to Shedeur because these guys are going to have a field day in your secondary, where your secondary has struggled mightily this season, covering, you know, for X amount of seconds. So, you know, with these 10 personnel kind of looks that, and 11 personnel groups that Colorado is going to throw out there a lot, you know, a lot's going to be on our defensive front, and whatever linebacker is in there to get pressure on Shedeur.
Yeah. So with that, all these receivers and all these great guys for Shedeur to pass to, I mentioned before, their O-line still struggles, and you really see that not just in the passing game where Shadur's running around. They really don't have much of a run game either, right? Augustave, who is their leading rusher, has less than 300 yards on the season. They throw virtually every 3 plays. 2 of them is likely going to be a pass, right? Jeremy, is that run game something that we should even care about?
I think yes, in as much as it's more about our defensive line kind of being lacking right now and just not having we really don't have a true run stopper up on the line. We're kind of just patching it together, hoping it works. And we've seen some success in that. We've seen some success, but more so because of what the linebackers are doing. So I think that in order for Colorado to really get a rushing game going, which I don't imagine that they would ever really care to do that, but Augustave and Hayden, like between those two that they've kind of gone to most of the season, there's really nothing. There's nothing superstar. You know, we talk about all these like big names for Colorado, but those two, like their running core, is kind of falls off after that. It's like, yeah, we got running backs. We have to have running backs. We recruited running backs, and there they are. You know, they've had decent runs this season, but nothing crazy, and they're definitely not the focus of this offense. So if Colorado is running, it's because Shadur Sanders has already packed in 500 yards, and they've already brought on the C team. And they're just like, hey, we're just going to run it now, run out the clock so we can go back to Boulder. So I don't think it's as much of a concern as anybody's making it out to be.
I will say a guy who's gotten a lot more playing time lately that I could see just balling in this game is his name just literally just came. Oh, sorry, my boy Harvey Dyson. Harvey Dyson, last few games, we've started to see him more and more. I'm excited for his future and what he has to come. But this is a game against the weak O-line that I could absolutely see, and especially off the edge, coming through and making some havoc. Bryce Ramirez, another guy that I can think coming off the edge, using his athleticism to really wreak some havoc. And so this is going to be an interesting one for sure, right? It's sometimes it's strength versus strength. Let's see who can ball out. This is a little bit more weakness versus weakness, and let's see who could become a strength today, right? And so I will say that the one, and I think a lot of it is youth versus youth also. Like a lot of Colorado's O-linemen are young, or the good ones anyway, are young. And then again with Texas Tech, you have a lot of young guys on the line because, well, our older guys all got hurt. So it will definitely be interesting to see how that pans out for sure. So as we flip to the other side of the coin and talk about Colorado's defense, right? We really have to talk about swag, and we got to talk about Charlie Hustle. Charlie Hustle is a vintage-inspired clothing company based out of Kansas City, Missouri, KCMO. And they want you to be the best dressed fan this season, so make sure to go to charliehustle.com using our promo code 101215, that's TEN1215, to get 50% off of that first, or 50% off of all non-sale items. That is promo code 101215, right? They have some nice Texas Tech Red Raider swag, so make sure you go to charliehustle.com. Charlie Hustle, vintage made fresh. So going over to the defensive side of the ball, Joe, who on defense? I mean, listen, Colorado is not this team that we're usually pretty worried about defensively, right? You outside of Travis Hunter, right? Obviously Travis Hunter's a man, and if you just think that Travis Hunter's only good on offense, you're asking me. I think he's better at cornerback than he is at receiver, which is saying something because he's already one of the best receivers in the country, right? I think as a lockdown, like he has future lockdown corner potential and ability. I think he's incredible in that aspect. Outside of that, this team has 24-year-old Shiloh Sanders as a starter. I should tell you everything you need to know about the secondary. He is Deion should have left that boy back at Jackson, right? Like he's the defense in general leaves something to be desired. So Joe, what is your take on this defense? Who on the defense should we be worried about?
I wouldn't necessarily say worried, but I mean they have like a linebacker, I guess, similar to like a Bryce Ramirez, like a heart and soul kind of guy, and then that's Levanta Bentley. He's makes plays whenever the big plays need to make, a stop behind the line, a sack or a pressure. covering a tight end or running back out of the backfield. He just kind of has always found a way to sniff out some of these plays. He's a smarter linebacker in their group. Bentley to me is kind of like a catalyst for it all. Shiloh, is Shiloh, 24 years old. He's, seems like he's running slow out there, probably from carrying all that debt he has, but that's neither here or there. So a majority of these, a majority of these guys, like we always say, you have, when your secondary is leading in tackles top to bottom. I think it's their top 5 or 6 defenders are in the secondary. That means there's some huge problems there, that you're not getting a push up front. Your linebackers aren't doing what they're supposed to do. So I think myself, Bentley himself is one of those catalysts for that defense and getting everybody lined up, just because he's been around the game for a while.
Yeah, this defense is interesting, and I'm surprised you mentioned Bentley and not the what I like to call the 3-name duo in Cameron Silman Craig, as well as Nakai Hill Green. Especially Nakai Hill Green, I give a lot of he actually looks a lot like Takeo Spikes, so I feel like that alone, like as a linebacker, the most important thing is you look menacing. When I played defensively, I was not a big guy, but I had a horse collar that made me look better than I actually was. And so, like for Nakai Hill Green, I think his main thing is he looks like Takeo Spikes. You're like, well, he got to be good, and I would say he is, right, for the Colorado defense. Now, one thing that's interesting is that it's Coach Prime, and he's gonna get some guys on his defense, right? And I do think Robert Livingston, who is the defensive coordinator, has done a good job of making a bunch of no names on this defense swarm and play a little bit better together. Like this Colorado defensively, when it comes to like their rankings, they're about a middle of the pack defense. They're ranked 8th in total yards given up in the conference. They're ranked 5th in fewest points allowed in the conference. Like this defense is one that, especially compared to last year, where they were just letting everybody named Mama score touchdowns. That's the second time I've used the Mama joke. I need to calm down on that one. But this defense, I think, has enabled the embodiment of, all right, we're all together in this. Offensively, they got Shadur, they got Travis. Defensively, Travis, you with us, but we're going to swarm and make them play this as a team. And I think Livingston has really done a good job of having them play together. Jeremy, what's your thoughts on the defense?
My stance on any defense in the history of time is that if your defensive backs are your like leaders, your defense is pretty trash. It's a good illustration. It's more of an illustration actually that you don't have any run stopping ability. People are getting to your second and third level of defense, and that's true for Colorado's sake. The game against Kansas State, DJ Giddens about ran for 200 yards in that team. And Nakai Hill Green was the saving grace for this Colorado team, because he was the guy stepping in front of Giddens and chucking him down. But Giddens still almost ran for $2, which is crazy. So I think that you bring up a really good point, though, Albie, that Livingston's done a good job at getting dudes to buy in. And that's kind of the big thing about this Colorado team defensively, right? Offensively, everybody knows the gambit, right? It's Shadur Sanders, is Hunter. Like they got it going. There's this star potential. Defensively, they've been a leaky dam, and what has had to change throughout the season is like everybody doing their assignments and then doing a little bit extra, because not everybody's that great at their assignments. So Colorado has shown a really good potential lately. And that Kansas State's a really good example, because although both of them racked up a bunch of yardage against each other, the dam broke late because Colorado got that touchdown, and it was like the game's over, 30 seconds left, we're done. But then Kansas State was like, not really. But the defense had checked out at that point. So I think that there's an ability to be good here, and they will. The thing is that they're going to challenge the passing game. Right, our running game will be fine. Like I think if you're Kitley and you're not giving the ball to Taj as much as humanly possible, you're making a huge mistake. And the critique is valid, but we're going to have to pass at some point. And with how Morton is playing, this defense is no doubt going to get 1 or 2 interceptions on Saturday, because that's what they do. They put quarterbacks in like difficult scenarios and try to create, just misnomer and chaos, and then capitalize on that with the good defensive players that they do have. Travis Hunter. So, it's a team to watch out for. It's like I don't know, it's like an alligator just sitting there in the water. It's not really a big deal, but if it jumps out at you, it can get you. So you gotta be careful.
Nice little correlation there. Man, you're a man of wisdom, I tell you, Jeremy.
Just lurking.
Just lurking.
They're lurking.
All right. Well, we're gonna lurk into these Prize Picks predictions here. So Prize Picks, make sure to download that Prize Picks app. When you do so, right, make sure to use our promo code TAKES12, TAKES12. That's gonna be 100% match up to $100. We just out here giving you free money. So make sure to use our promo code TAKES12, TAKES12 for 100% match up to $100. So, Mr. Gillen, give me your key to the game, buddy.
I'll tell you. Okay, my key to the game is, man, don't let the lights scare you. Don't let the big lights scare you, because this is going to be this is the highest profile game Texas Tech has this year. I know that we just played Iowa State on the road. Not everybody was really watching that game. Nobody cared. They said Texas Tech's going to get blown out. Guess what? We didn't. But now that we didn't, Big Noon Kickoff was like, hello, we're going to come down to Lubbock, put you on prime time. We're going to talk about Texas Tech. All morning, we're going to talk about Texas Tech. We're going to show Texas Tech in the background. We're going to talk about some tradition, the Masked Rider or something. They're going to bring up something, and they're going to talk about Texas Tech. Here's a beautiful story about Texas Tech. Blah, blah, blah. Here's the unique architecture. Blah. Let's talk about Joey McGuire and how good he is for the sport. Let's talk about McGuire and Deion's relationship, and let's show them hugging and stuff. Don't let it get to you. Oh, my God, don't let it get to you. Because I have seen it too many times that people start paying attention to Texas Tech, and then we just shit the bed. And I'm just like, we have to change the narrative. We really do. And for McGuire's sake, I was talking about somebody else, in his first year, we played 5 back-to-back top 25 teams, and we never got back-to-back victories in any of that. We won against Houston, and then we beat Texas, but we lost the other 3, right? And we couldn't be consistently good. So here's a beautiful opportunity, and you get to be at home. It's not even like you have to go to Boulder. You get to be at home. So don't let all this attention scare you. Go out. Be the team that you can be. Like, be impressive. Don't let the lights scare you.
I don't know if I want them to be the team they can be. I don't know what team they can be. Joe, what is your key to the game?
Last week we were talking just, in our chat about what the key to the game needed to be. And mine was pride. Play with some pride. Coaches coach with pride. Players play with pride. And it seems like that whole mantra and that mentality kind of spilled over on Saturday night or Saturday afternoon in Ames. And this one is, I think it's going to be something very similar. You have this big team that's expected to just come in here and whip your ass, and you're going to have to stop them. This is a team they call it a team of destiny. I've heard that they're on their way to the Big 12 championship, that, we're just another team in their way, and kind of looking past us like, oh, the rest of our schedule's cake. This is it. This is everything. I think a lot of it is just going to be on this team of coming out, because the last time that this football team played in Lubbock, Texas, I mean, I don't even want to talk about what happened in Lubbock, Texas the last time they played here. So I think a lot, and leaving that bad taste in everybody's mouth, leaving that stadium, mid third quarter after getting, your ass kicked by Baylor. I think a lot of it is just another pride deal. Protect your home, protect the Jones. Let's just bring that back. Protect the Jones. Do what you're supposed to do here. Joe Vimber was going to continue on. So let's just play with some pride.
That's right. Play with pride again.
Yeah.
So, this game is interesting, because I think there's a lot of things here, right? Like a lot of things that I wanted to say as far as the key here. I mean, I think one big key is you got to contain Shedeur, contain Travis. You're not going to stop them, but contain them. Make the game winnable. It's one of my big things. This is a nationally televised game, big noon kickoff. Let the country know who you are. Let them know who Texas Tech is. But really, it all came back to one key thing. Not that. It all came back to one key thing, and that is stack success. You had success last week. You proved all the doubters wrong, including the three of us last week.
That's right.
Stack success. Let success rub off on you. Because here's the thing, right? If we think Arlington's a realistic possibility, right? You can't just let success get to your. A part of me thinks, and I remember watching Tech when they played Baylor. There was a little thing about they were talking to Taj, and one of the announcers was saying how when she talked to Taj, they were saying how though they weren't getting national respect, it was really cool. The players were saying how cool it was to be around campus. Everyone was saying, "Oh, hey, high five!" And you're on your scooter, and everyone's like, "Good job, Wreckham guys." And it's almost, I'm not saying they couldn't handle that success, but it's almost like I remember listening to that, like, I don't know how they're going to respond to that. And they didn't respond well. All back-to-back games, right? And here is the thing is you just beat Iowa State. Congrats. Guess what? That ain't nothing. Let's go out and beat Colorado. Let's go out and beat Oklahoma State. Let's go out and beat West Virginia. Stack that success like Matt Wells has always wanted. So with that being said, Mr. Lopez, what is your score prediction?
It's very, very. It's not difficult. I'm calling the Tech win here.
Ooh, we back.
Taking care of business at home. I think it's going to be a little bit. I don't know, man. Because every time I say that it's going to be high scoring, it's not. Every time I say it's going to be low scoring, it's high scoring or an ass whooping.
Welcome to predictions.
Give me Texas Tech 38, Colorado 35.
Ooh, a close game. Is this a field goal at the buzzer, or is this a defense holds it firm at the end?
This is a field goal late, and then the defense comes back and holds them as they try to go down and get that tying field goal.
Are we getting a MAGA shirt reveal afterwards?
He's not going to be participating. This is Gino.
Gino time. This is Gino.
Yeah, this is Gino time.
He ain't wearing that. He ain't wearing that.
This is G2 time. Gino Garcia. This is the G2.
That's right. All right, Jeremy. What do you got? What is your prediction?
Yeah, man. I was thankful that we were all so wrong last week, but I'm still not on the Joey train. I'm still on the Joey train. I think that this Colorado team has been
leaving us in suspense.
Yeah.
Why?
I think they have.
Why does this keep happening to me?
All right. So what about the Joey train?
It's like it says my internet's bad. Nothing. I've done nothing different. Lubbock internet people. So I just think that I just don't believe. It's hard for me to believe. It's hard for me to believe that we're one step closer to Arlington. So I feel like something's going to happen, and I feel like we're going to have a loss at home. Like it's just the lights are too bright. I feel like Colorado is playing good football, and we have a lot of turn them off. Turn this guy. Turn the lights off. Turn them off. That's exactly right. That's an elite reference. Anyways, I think this game will be close, but I think that Colorado is going to want to right the wrongs that they had against Kansas State, and they will have better coaching to end the game on their terms. And so, I think that's going to be close, but I think it's going to be a little high scoring. I think it's going to be like 45-42 Texas, or 45-38 Colorado. 45-38 Colorado.
I'm going to ask you the same question. Is this Shedeur Sanders with a game-winning touchdown? Is this Texas Tech not getting the win at the offense, not getting the win at the end? What are we looking at?
Oh God. I did see a stat, but since the Washington State game, Texas Tech is perfect in the red zone for points. That's a wild stat. So I think that it's going to be I think it's going to be in that situation. I think it's going to be, we did a really good job late in the game, get a touchdown, and then Colorado takes their spaces the timeout strategically and then gets a touchdown to win it. And it's just too late, too little, too late. Shooter Sanders pass, obviously. No, they're not running that thing in.
All right, so Colorado. So I'm the tiebreaker. With that, I'm going to talk about some trends in this game. So speaking of the tiebreaker, Texas Tech and Colorado, if I remember correctly, this is going to be the tiebreaker in the series. Both teams have 5 wins playing each other. And for children that may not know, we actually used to play Colorado almost every year. Back when Colorado was in the Big 12. Yes, they used to be in the Big 12 back in the day. So this is our 11th meeting. We will be playing, and this is the rubber match, right? With that, Colorado has covered the spread in 8 of their last 11 games. They're currently 4-point favorites in this game. But Texas Tech has hit the money line in 8 of the last 12 games, and we are money line. There is no favorites, underdogs. Whoever wins it. So this will be very interesting to kind of see what happens in this game. In our last 10, Colorado is 7-3 against the spread in the last 10 games, while Texas Tech is 6-3-1 against the spread. The over/under in this game 62.5. So I do think that we're going to go over. I think 62.5 is actually pretty light. They must not know or must not have heard about. Actually, let me do quick maths. Make sure I am going to go over. Okay, I'm going to go over. They must not have heard about Texas Tech secondary or have heard about Colorado's pass rush, because I think both of those are susceptible to getting gashed. So, but with all that being said, me being the rubber match man that I am, me choosing one way or another, I agree with Jeremy. I do not think that this Texas Tech team is for real just yet. I got Colorado 38-27. I do think that Shedeur Sanders is going to gash us up quite a bit on the way to him scoring 4 touchdowns at least. I think this is just not a game that sets up well for Tech in the way we play. It's just not. The only exception is that I think Taj is going to have a big game. But I think as we start to lose, we are going to be forced to go away from Taj and put the ball more in the passing game's hands, where it's not going to be as advantageous against a team that does have a better secondary, right? We can't just target Shallow Sanders all day, right? So, I think this game is going to get pretty tough in the second half, especially as Colorado starts gaining the lead. And this is a game that I would say I have not changed any of my predictions from what I thought was going to happen in the beginning of the year. This is probably the first time I'm looking at a game that I thought Tech would win in August and saying I don't think they're going to win now, or vice versa, right? Like my predictions have kind of fell in line with what I thought was going to happen in August on the way to my 7-5 at the end of the season. Difference is that I didn't expect us to beat Iowa State. We did, but I also did not expect Colorado to be this good, and they are. And so, this is less an indictment on Tech and more. I think Colorado's the real deal. I think Shedeur Sanders is the second best quarterback in the country, only behind Cam Ward. As much love as Travis Hunter's getting for the Heisman, I think Shedeur Sanders actually, to be honest, should be in some bit of consideration too, because I think that's how good he is. And though Jeremy refused to answer the question, Shedeur Sanders is the best quarterback in the Big 12, and I honestly don't think it's that close. I don't think there's a close second.
None of them better than Ashton Genty, though, but that, it is what it is.
Ashton Genty is not winning no dang
Why do you think that is?
He plays for Boise State. Heisman voters are
Yeah,
not
that's
voting for a Boise
That's what
State
sucks
running back.
about that's what sucks about the state of voting in this college sports world. Nobody gives a shit about the sport anymore.
Okay. I didn't know where you were going. I didn't know where this was going.
That's great.
What is that? Eject. Think of our demographic. Think of our demo.
Oh, that's funny.
All right. Yes, the state of voting when it comes to the Heisman and college football
Shameful.
award.
Shameful. We've fallen so far.
But yeah, no, he ain't voting for no Boise State running back. And honestly, somebody else brought this up the other day too, is that like the Iowa running back stats are comparable. Like as crazy as Gentee's had, the Iowa running back, obviously he doesn't have stats as good, but like they're not too far off. So if the Iowa running back played at Boise State, would he have, going up against New Mexico?
Yeah, man. Taj played at Boise State.
If Taj played at Boise State,
see ya.
You know what I mean? So like I'm like, Gentee's good. I'm not saying he's not good. He's a really good core running back and very exciting to watch. He's not the Heisman. Yeah, I think the Heisman's between Cam Ward and Travis Hunter. To be honest, I think it's just it'll be one of them two. And if you ask me, it's Cam Ward, but I'm all in favor for a non-quarterback winning the award. And Travis Hunter, who's playing wide receiver and cornerback both at elite levels, is worthy of that for sure. So before we get up out of here, guys, time to look at the rest of the Big 12 slate. Colorado plays Texas Tech. Colorado plays Texas Tech at 4:00 this Saturday on Fox. We got the big game. Big Noon Kickoff ain't coming to Lubbock for no reason. Fox made sure to get us that big mid-afternoon game there. But in the morning, Fox threw these two teams on FS1 and said, y'all go play over there in the sandbox. And that is a newfound rivalry game, West Virginia at Cincinnati. It's one of those weird rivalry games. It's not really it's one of those like manufactured rivalry games, right? Eventually they'll hate each other, but it ain't there yet. So, Joe, who do you have? West Virginia at Cincinnati.
Cincinnati coming through and taking care of West Virginia. West Virginia, by the time they make it to Lubbock, is going to be limping into Lubbock, and I think it's just one of those games. Those last two games you got to win, but I know that's almost 4 weeks away from now. So I think Cincinnati takes that game.
Cincinnati currently a 4-point favorite. Jeremy, you agree?
Cincinnati at home. Good team. I'll take them.
I kind of want West Virginia to win this game. I want them to win and feel really good about themselves. But actually, we have a couple weeks before we play West Virginia. Actually, never mind. They can feel shitty about themselves for another week. Yeah, I think Cincinnati at home, better team, home game, Cincinnati. And this could be that buyout for Neil Brown gets a bit lighter. I think if Neil Brown doesn't make a bowl game, I don't know how West Virginia can continue keeping him as a coach. I like Neil Brown. He's my boy, but I can't fight for you not making bowl games, my guy. So, anyways, ranked Iowa State at Kansas. Who you got, Jeremy?
Give me the Cyclones. Revenge for losing and revenge for likely not being selected in the college football playoff. I'm sure they're pissed. I'm sure they're ready to blow off some steam. Give me the Cyclones.
Pissed off Cyclones, Joe. What do you think?
Yes, very much so. Pissed off Cyclones. I think they go into Arrowhead Stadium and handle their business against Kansas. Kansas just is just a shell of themselves.
Let's be honest. It'll be an Iowa State home game.
Yeah. It will be. Iowa State, they have a right to be pissed off, but you know what's so great about the college football playoff? Just win. If you want to be in the college football playoff, don't lose. That's all it is. And I get it. The reason being upset about the SEC bias and the Big Ten bias, it's stupid. It's ridiculous. But one thing I like about this college football playoff, reason why I've always liked the college basketball tournament, is that every Power 4 team in the country has a gateway to win a national championship, right? And that wasn't the case before. Florida State went undefeated in the regular season and didn't make the college football playoff last year. right? Like Auburn went undefeated in the season to make college football win a championship. UCF went undefeated in the season and didn't go to the national championship game. Now, none of those things would ever happen again. Now, I mean, if Ball State goes undefeated and they're the number 2 group of 5 team, well, sorry about you. But every Power 4 conference has a chance to make the national championship game, and most group of 5 teams do as well. And so Iowa State still got a shot, but now the shot just gets a little bit harder. Yeah, I also picked Iowa State, by the way. I think that's pretty obvious. UCF at Arizona State. Jeremy, who you got?
Arizona State. They've been looking good, man. Scattaboo. He has been lights out for them right now, and I think that they've got a pretty complete team at the moment. UCF is as much as I want to like UCF, they've been a little bit better, but there's still some unanswerables for them, and I think that on the road is going to be difficult. So give me Arizona State.
The Great White Hope Cam Scatterbo just passed 1,000-yard mark in rushing this year. Good running back there. Joe, who you got in this game?
If Scatterbo plays, I'll take Arizona State, but he's doubtful for the game. So if he doesn't play, I think that's a big hindrance to that offense altogether. And I think Central Florida goes in and wins that game if Scatterbo's not on the field.
Ooh, yeah, true. Nice prediction. Here's the thing. UCF was on a 5-game losing streak until they had the space game against Arizona. Ain't no space game today. I got Arizona State winning this game because they're not Arizona. That's really the difference. They're the only wins that UCF have this year against bad teams: New Hampshire, Sam Houston, TCU, Arizona. Those are all bad teams, and so I think Arizona State has proven not to be a bad team, and so Arizona State beats UCF, especially at home. Oklahoma State at TCU. Joe, it's okay to say that your answer is I don't care, but let's pick one.
I don't care, but I think the big slide for Oklahoma State continues there in Fort Worth. I think they get handed another L in the Big 12. TCU does what TCU is supposed to do, and Oklahoma State is just, like I said, a shell of themselves that from a year ago. TCU going away.
I don't know if I've ever seen Oklahoma State as a 10.5-point underdog. That's pretty crazy.
Yes, crazy bad.
Yeah. Jeremy?
TCU. Yeah, it's TCU.
Do they cover at least?
Ooh. It's hard to say, man. Because I talked up Hoover earlier. I think Hoover's going to have a nice field day in this Oklahoma State defense, which is worse than ours.
Yeah, somehow. That's the crazy thing about Oklahoma State is, I mean, it's easy to blame their offense. It's easy to blame the fact that Ollie Gordon's not balling like he's supposed to. It's easy to blame that Alan Bowman stinks like we all knew he would. But the defense is awful. Like the defense is the problem. And going up against, Josh Hoover, it's going to be tough. Here's the thing, guys. If Oklahoma State doesn't win out, their 18-game winning streak, their 18-game bowl streak comes to 18-year bowl streak comes to an end. They are 3-6 right now. They have to win out to have a shot at it. But TCU puts the final nail in the coffin. And it is a nail in the coffin that I desperately want because I don't need any reason for Oklahoma State. I know they're bad, but I still don't need any reason for Oklahoma State to have hope and want to when they play Texas Tech next week. Last but not least, rivalry game, the Holy War, 9th-ranked BYU at Utah. Jeremy's not looking very holy right now, but go ahead and pick a team.
BYU, man. It's BYU. And the disrespect against BYU continues. If you saw, who is it? Miami, right? This is like 6-0, but they're up at the 4th spot, and the discrepancy, like 5 spots down, is BYU, who is also undefeated. And it's just like, Can we get a descriptor about why that is? No, we cannot. But BYU continuing to impress, continuing to, hey, man, I hope they ride this all the way to the college football playoff. I hope they get the semis, the national championship. I don't care. All aboard the Mormon train.
Here's the thing, Jeremy. Indiana is ahead of them. Indiana's best win this season is Nebraska.
Yeah.
A Nebraska team that's, 500? That's their best win this season. Meanwhile, BYU has 2 wins over ranked teams currently, right? Beat Kansas State, beat SMU. SMU is currently in the college football playoff,
Right.
based on their rankings. But yet they're ranked. BYU's ranked 9th. It made absolutely zero sense where BYU is. Again, just win and they're in. That's fine, but it's still kind of they are the ones that actually should be pretty upset about it, if anything. To have teams like Texas, Penn State, Tennessee with 1 loss all ahead of them. Texas right now doesn't have a win that's better than what BYU has. Penn State, they're only shot at a good win. They blew it against Ohio State. So it's just some of these things are just it's not adding up, right? BYU should absolutely. I don't have a problem with them being behind Miami, but they should be right there where Miami is. And actually, I'd say their resume is better than Miami. They just don't have Cam Ward. I say all that to say BYU is going to win. Joe, who do you got?
I also have BYU winning, but I think this is I think it's going to be closer than what people predict.
I think so too. Yeah.
Maybe like 10 points or less. I think it'll be something close like that. But yeah, I think BYU's train to the college football playoffs continues, and to the Big 12 championship potentially.
So I will say, so BYU still has BYU's road to the end of the season is not going to be easy, right? So this Utah team is not as great as they have been previously, or not as great as we expect them to be. Utah's right now harboring a 4-game losing streak, including their loss last week to Houston, or 2 weeks ago to Houston. But I will say, and I forgot to mention this before, with Colorado, another reason why I think Colorado is going to beat Texas, they're coming off of a bye week. Utah is also coming off of a bye week. So this game, to your point, Joe, is going to be tight. Rivalry game where anything can happen. Isaac Wilson is still trying to figure out this whole quarterback thing. But BYU, I think, for the remaining schedule, where BYU has a rivalry game at Utah, Kansas, luckily at home, they should be fine. But at Arizona State, who's proven to be a good team, and against a Houston team that's getting better every single week. One question I have for both of you is, does BYU end the season undefeated?
They have a really good chance to. It's a good team.
Yeah. I would say they do. They get past Utah, I think they do.
I'm going to say they don't. Arizona State, come through for me. I'm going to say Arizona State. I say BYU is not going to finish the season undefeated. I think the Big 12 is too much of tough of a slate to finish undefeated. I think Arizona State's they're going to pull it out. They're going to pull it out. Anyways, anything else you want to say to the people, Jeremy?
121 yards. That's what stands between Taj Brooks and, beating Byron Hansbert's. I was trying to think of not just the total yardage, but I think also the 100-yard games. I think he'll eclipse both at the same time. Okay. So right there.
So you think he gets it?
If DJ Giddens can rack up 180 yards against this Colorado defense, I think my boy can get 121 yards. I think he can do that.
Who is DJ Giddens' offensive coordinator?
Next.
Exactly. Not exactly. Joe, what? Anything else you want to say to the people?
Yeah. Be out there, be loud, be proud. It's going to be a huge, huge atmosphere for a bunch of different reasons. They need all of our support. If you can't afford $250 for a ticket, which, not a lot of us can, it is what it is. But go out there and support this team. I mean, the community is humming right now. It's humming for a bunch of different reasons. Try to get some of this respect back from a national standpoint in the media, because we necessarily don't get this. So let's just go out there and play some football and show everybody what we're all about. But yeah, just a huge weekend coming up. So yeah, I'm just ready for Saturday afternoon.
Joey, Zach, listen to me. I know you're listening. You listen every week. Friends of the pod for sure. I know it. I need you to do me a favor. Get Todd's Brooks record this Saturday. Do not let Todd break the record in Stillwater, Oklahoma. Please don't do that. Get the record this Saturday. Let's call it a day. Let's wash our hands of it. And win or lose, get the record. At the very least, all right? Get the record. So we were talking about this pre-pod. Last thing I want to say is we were talking about this pre-pod that, on Texas Tech's jerseys, all the captains have a C on their jersey. We found out that Colorado, instead of the C's, we knew, and I had seen it, they have L's. I've seen Shadir Sanders has an L on his jersey. Travis Hunter has a D on his jersey. And so they have, instead of C for captains, they have L's and D's. Stands for leaders and dogs. It should stand for losers and dildos. It makes no sense. It's completely idiotic to have L's and D's. Prime, I like you, bud, but come on now. L's and D's, what the hell are we doing here? Anyways, for a bunch of P's and G's, players and gangsters. So he gonna sign off. For People's Champ Jeremy Gillen, and for the Red Raider expert Joe Lopez, this is your boy Albie Shore, and you have been listening to the Tortillas and Takes podcast, part of the 1012 Network. As always, stay wrecked, people.